I made a video about a few months back, and I basically went over the three options for basically getting a car. Number one, lease; two, get a used car; three, get a new car. And I used a Tesla as an example for that. My basic conclusion after running all the math, roughly, because Tesla's kind of easiest to calculate on this because there's no dealer situation, so you know exactly what you're going to pay for everything. So it might shock you to learn, even though on that video, I listed lease as the worst option financially. I went and got a Tesla lease. Now, let me explain why I think this wasn't a bad financial decision. So, number one, and this no longer applies to anyone that's going to be doing this potentially, because it's gone, unless it comes back in future iterations at some point, perhaps the next administration. The tax credit, it's gone now, but I got it when I got my lease. Now, whether you get a new car, a used car, or a lease, you get, or used to get, an EV tax credit applied. Now, for a new car or a lease, you get a larger tax credit. Used car, it was a lower amount. So a new car is like $7,500 off the purchase price. So right away, I got that. Boom, knocks it down. So that's applied to my lease as the overall amount. Now, again, that's not going to apply, but that was a huge factor. Now, if you get the same car that I got today, even though it's just a few months later, it's now considered the premium version versus the standard version. So I got almost like an upgrade there for free. Reason number two that I think it made sense in my situation personally: electric cars and Teslas in general, I feel like they're progressing so quickly that it's almost a hedge right there against that tech kind of advancement. Now, I might be wrong there. Maybe it'll still be a very viable car in a few years. I'd say probably yes on that. But it's nice to have the option to kind of dip out of it in 3 years if that is the case. The other portion to this is these cars tend to devalue very quickly versus something like a Toyota, for example. Is it entirely justified? Probably not. I think people are still very leery about electric cars and especially the batteries, but it's still the case. It doesn't matter how you or I feel about it. They devalue pretty quickly. So it's almost like an insurance on that. Whatever basically my car devalues to in that span of the 3-year lease, when we get to the end, I have that buyout agreement. If the car is worth less than that buyout agreement, then obviously it makes more sense to turn it in than to take that agreement. And if I like the car, I can just get the equivalent for less money. So in that sense, it's kind of like an insurance policy that I'm paying for, premium for. The fourth reason for me personally is I had a Kia Soul. I was not unhappy with this car. It was pretty reliable. I never had any sort of major issues over my roughly 6 years of ownership, which is pretty good. However, the major flaw was that it had a major theft issue with Kias and Hyundais, which is still ongoing. Multiple friends and acquaintances of mine had gotten their cars broken into because basically with the older Kia models, you could just pop open the thing under the steering wheel, under the steering wheel column, plug in a USB stick and start the car. So obviously they were getting stolen in high numbers. This was an extremely annoying thing to deal with because I had to basically get a steering wheel lock for my car. And I always thought I was going to be a victim of theft constantly. So just not something I wanted to deal with on a regular basis. So I had to get out of that car. And the other smaller factor in this was the leasing process at Tesla was so easy. Like, I tried to go to a traditional dealership to see what they were offering from the Volkswagen. I forgot the exact model, but you probably know what it was called, like the Volkswagen electric SUV thing. And it was fine. But it was like a bait and switch when I got there. They're like, oh, this one isn't available. There's like a premium version. It's going to be more. And I was like, all right, I don't want to deal with all this. Like, they're already trying to oh, maybe we can do this, go back to the back office, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's just like a time suck. And the whole process is horrible for a dealership. I just hate it. The Tesla was so easy. I literally just went on the Tesla app, bing, bang, boom, put my deposit down, and then it's like your car is going to be here in a week, and that's it. So far easier, just far more simplistic. I just want something that works well, and I'm not going to have to be constantly repairing. And for me, it just made sense. Now, are these numbers necessarily going to make sense for you? I don't know. I think a big factor in it making sense for me was that tax credit. An extra $7,500 added on to my total purchase price or spread out among those months could definitely make a difference. I think that's probably like an extra $100 a month, which isn't nothing. So, I mean, does it make sense? I think so. I think we'll have to ultimately see how it plays out in 3 years when my lease ends. Because ultimately, if I was able, to lock in that purchase price and return it and then get the same car, if I like the Tesla, then I think it makes sense to me. Like if the spread there is good, kind of is logical. Now, that being said, I don't think leases make sense in everyone's situation. Like, obviously, if you can't stay under that mileage limit, if you're driving a ton, yeah, probably doesn't make sense to you. I'm able to stay under that 10,000 a year with not too much problem. And if I, for whatever reason, go over it, then maybe I would just buy the car and it wouldn't be a huge deal anyways. But that's kind of the reason I did end up getting a Tesla lease. Let me know, though, if you're considering getting a Tesla, a lease, buy, or used car. I looked at all three options, and again, it made the most sense for me. I think my secondary to this would have been getting a Tesla used car, but I wanted the option to return it just in case I didn't like it. But in terms of devaluation, that probably would be the second most logical for my personal situation again. Overall, for the overall individual, now that tax credit's gone, probably going to be a used car that makes most sense, be it Tesla or otherwise. But that's kind of how I approached it. Let me know your thoughts down below, and thanks for watching.